Hello and welcome to another edition of the Wealth Equation podcast. So today I am excited, as always, to introduce a new guest to our podcast, to our show, a gentleman called Ryan Venner. Okay, now Ryan is at an interesting stage in his career. His business is at an interesting stage. I'll tell you why. Because Ryan's the managing director of Premier Jobs UK, and he is transitioning from his father, who's Gary, who's the CEO and the founder 2007, 18 years ago. These gentlemen are in the process of the baton being handed over. I'm sure that Ryan's going to tell us more about this as we go forwards. Ryan, your business, your website is impressive. Everybody, if you haven't been to see Premier Jobs UK, go look at it. Go see about it. Go and explore. I love the banner headline, which was the most trusted recruiter. So this is a business, isn't it, Ryan, that's very pointed in its focus. It's a financial services related business. It's extremely targeted. I'm looking forward to hearing more about it. Why don't you tell us and everybody watching and listening what Premier Jobs UK is all about?
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm really
You're
pleased to
welcome.
be here. Premier Jobs UK, as you said, established in 2007. We've always been specializing in the financial services market. And
Yep.
to be quite frank with you, we're so busy in this market, we've got no desire to move outside of it. But equally, we we know our market so well. A lot of our team come from the industry. And so we pride ourselves on being able to really understand the market, understand our clients, understand our candidates, the challenges they have. And I feel that's what, as recruiters, should be able to do to give that guidance, because we're advising people all day long, whether it's a business or whether it's a candidate. And so we need to know the market and peel back the layers. And so that's why we've chosen to specialize in the market and stay within that market. We deal mainly in the financial planning and mortgage side of things. As a business, we cover the whole of the UK, and that's something we've always done since 2007. But nowadays, technology makes it so easy to, with Teams, Zoom,
Sure.
telephone,
Yeah.
email. There's just no reason why we can't cover the UK.
And how many sites do you have, Ryan?
So we have just the one head office.
Okay.
Then we've got consultants who are based remotely. So we've got them dotted across the country.
I saw that on the website. There were several regional locations, and I wondered, yeah, okay, that makes sense now. Yeah, very interesting. And how many people are in the business, in the team then?
Yeah, sure. So at the moment, we've got 15 in the team.
Okay.
That's pretty much about 12 on the Premier Job side of the business,
Yeah.
11 or 12 on the Premier Job side. And then within the group, we've also got our sister business, IFA Acquisitions, which
Yeah.
specializes on the brokering of buying and selling IFA businesses. And we've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
3 or 4 in that team.
Superb stuff. So it sounds very much like your I want to say a level three business. Now, the people that have watched this podcast that tune in regularly will understand what a level three business is. Let's just quickly remind those that don't know what it is. Level three is where the business is able to function without the person or the people that started it own it. Yeah, so it's basically functioning through the performance of the systems, the processes, the people. Now that's a great thing. Well done. It's hard to do. By our statistics, we think that roughly 3% of businesses in the business community reach level three. The rest are trying, probably, you know? So how do you manage culture? How do you manage rules of the game across a 15 plus member team and multiple locations? You're the managing director, so you're the custodian of this stuff, right? So tell us about it. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm also benefiting from Gary, who, as CEO, founder of the business.
Sure.
I'm picking up the baton that he started all those years ago,
Yeah.
and it's important that we're aligned. But also for us, 6 of our team are nearing 10 years or more within the business. So when
Okay.
it comes to culture, it's very easy when you've got a loyal, long-serving team. because you're not having to rewrite it all the time, because you've got people who've been with us through the years, and they want to be part of our team because we are aligned on values. It's about doing the right
There you
thing,
go. There
not
you go.
going for the short-term win, because we're all here for a purpose. We're all here for the long term. And if we take the shortcuts, we get found out.
Isn't it interesting that people truly, I mean, Maslow was right, wasn't he, way back in the year? You've done your master's degree, you know what I'm on about there. So people are driven by many different things, but of course, stability and security, recognition, being a part of something is really very important. So how have you, tell us how you've engendered this longevity. Retention of talent for me is the fourth aspect of building a world-class team. So it's not easy to do. So how do you do it, Ryan?
Well, we have a growth mindset. We always want to be growing by a considerable amount. If you look back over our years, we typically grow by 20% a year. Now that's on a compounding basis. So it gets hard when you're in, to the thick end of things to be growing, but it is always trying to have that in mind and working back from it to what you're doing on a daily, weekly basis. But it's also having everyone in the team who recognize that, and they recognize within their individual performances they need to grow. Now, obviously, we want them to be growing by 20% if they can on an individual basis, but it's also as a business we need to grow so that if people are doing 5-10% growth, then we add more team in so that we collectively grow. But it's always staying ahead of the curve, really.
So I guess what we're all hearing there from our friend Ryan this morning is that we're a growth-driven business. That's stimulating a certain type of attitude. We're plugged in from the very top of the organization all the way down. I love that. I think that's great. And there'll be people watching right now that are running small businesses that are struggling with that concept. Like dare I say, struggling to hire people, for goodness sakes, let alone hang on to them. So it's tough, right? When you're learning at level 1 and level 2 how to do this. So you mentioned something really very powerful, and I want to come back to it and just draw a line underneath it for everybody. You mentioned words to the effect of, we're going to achieve our 20% growth this year because of what people are doing daily and weekly. You see, for me, that's fundamental. And it's very unusual to hear that kind of narrative and language within our discussions with people. Why? Because it's rare. It's rare that managers understand that it's what their people are doing in the 8 hours ahead of them every single day that decides whether the business wins or not. That's really cool. So tell us a little bit about how you do that. How do you, because you're into management now, aren't you? This is not leadership territory, this is management territory. So how do you make that happen, man? Tell us.
Yeah, of course. Look, recruitment's a results orientated industry.
Right.
And so we need to be focusing on what's in our pipeline. What are we working on? Have
Yeah.
we got enough candidates we're working with right now? Have we got enough vacancies we're working with? And so it is finding that balance between making sure activity is always high, and if it's not, bringing it in, but also making sure there's no feast and famine. It's very easy to have busy weeks and then have a quieter week, but it's okay because on average it works out. Well, no, you always need to be having a minimum level of activity to keep the performance at a certain level.
That's completely clear. I agree. And the metric attached to the measurement of that is essential, right? You can't manage something if you can't measure it. It's clear. I'm interested though, Ryan, if you can, just what systems, what processes, what mechanisms do you have in place to make sure that your team know what they're doing today? Be as granular as you can, because this is the space that people watching really want to learn from, right? So how are you making sure that Fred knows what he's doing Monday morning when he rocks up at 8:30 for his 8-hour day?
Yeah, of course. Well, going back to the culture piece that you mentioned earlier on in the conversation, we treat everyone as an individual. So my approach is you have processes that
Yeah.
people need to follow, but they're guidelines. everyone needs to have their own personality, their own way of working, and have the blend of the two. So everyone in my team is managed in a slightly different way that works to their way. So when I'm looking at
Very.
sales figures, for example, everyone's on an individual basis because some will work at a higher volume and maybe lower value. Some will have a lot lower value, higher value, but lower volume. And so it's just making sure that you're understanding each individual basis and not tarring everyone with the same brush. And that's how I feel you obtain loyalty, because
Mm,
people aren't being hit with a stick that doesn't work for them, that it's in an individual basis. But
absolutely.
but equally is data is really important, and tracking it over a long period to provide averages. You can look at conversion rates, you can look at what do you need into the sales funnel, and for that individual person's situation, what should then come out the other end, and that then drives the inputs.
So what, by the way, again, I want to say, thank you for sharing, because what you bring into the show is at a high level there, and there'll be people who will be super grateful for what you've just said. The ability to understand that Tom, Dick, and Harry are different human beings, and we have to tailor the way that we manage them. Leadership, clearly, you're bringing leadership, by the way, aren't you, Ryan, into this conversation? The way that you're inspiring, and that you're energizing your people is there. But again, that lovely leadership management balance is clear, massively powerful. So tell me, how do you how would you describe your management style? What is it?
I would say relaxed.
I'd
I would
agree. Yeah.
I would say um, I do try to listen to the individual needs,
Mm,
not just what the people are saying, but also their circumstances. You know, we have individuals in our team who are self-employed, and so we have individuals in the team who are employed. You can't manage them the same way.
mm.
Um, and we've got some who are self-employed who want to be managed like they're employed, and they actively ask for it. So it is very much just listening to what they want. But it is also, I would say, in terms of the management style, um, a level of analysis as well, because it's important. If you want to be planning ahead, you need to know what figures and numbers you need to be achieving to be on track.
Mm.
And
Massively important.
you've then got to draw that back and put it into the real world,
Mm.
um, and apply context for the team. Because sometimes saying to the team members, "This is what you need to do,"
Yeah,
is good, but they want to know it in their context as well. So it's
yeah, yeah,
talking in their language.
100%, 100%. It's yeah. I think what you're defining there is a level of sophistication and a depth of thinking that is again in small businesses is rare. It's exclusively for the level three player. So all of those out there that are watching, listening, that are level one, level two people, keep going, keep thinking, but listen to what Ryan's saying here. Be disciplined. Do the laps. Go to bed until 2 a.m. for the next 3 or 4 days. Get the plan clear. Get the measurement tools in place. Work out how to do this, right? This is what you guys have done. You may not be doing it right now, but certainly Gary did it 10, 20 years ago. 100% he did, right? So back to management style, Ryan. Empathy,
Yeah.
right? That's what I'm hearing. Empathy. I'm hearing, what else am I hearing? Analysis. I'll give you one more. And everybody watching, listening needs to have this in their toolkit if they don't. Consistency.
Yeah, true.
I get the impression that you're very consistent.
Try to be. Yeah. There's times where, things happen and you can't be consistent, but you need to definitely lean towards consistency more than you don't. And
I think your score is pretty high.
if you're not consistent, I think it's just making sure the people around you know what your desire is, and
Sure.
you will get back there.
Yeah,
Um,
you go. Empathy again, right? 1,000,000%. Yeah. So it's interesting again. Let's be completely clear on this. Today we're here to talk about the wealth equation. We're really unraveling a little bit of Premier Jobs, which is wonderful. To segue or to circle around to the wealth equation a little bit, the people that are wealthy in this world have these traits. It's that you don't get to be wealthy by just talent alone or luck. You have to dig it out. Sorry to be trite there, but you have to dig the wealth out. It has to be built, and it takes blood, sweat, and tears, right? We've had some fantastic interviews on here where people have said things like, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. If you're not prepared to have sleepless nights and 5 years of torture, don't go into business. And all these sort of cliches, they're correct though. So the wealth equation, as we all know now, is about balance across three critical facets. Number one, time. Number two, money. And number three, health. There's not a lot of point having lots of time, no money, and no health, or lots of money, but no time, and so on. So tell us about your perspective around this, Ryan. Start with all three and the balance. So how do you guys that run this super business, what's your approach to the wealth equation?
Yeah, of course. I definitely agree with all of those bits. I'd also argue there's a fourth as well, which is reputation.
Interesting.
Because you're only as valuable as your reputation, and that's something that cannot be built overnight. Has to be with your, as you said earlier, put the laps in, put the reps in, and it one day clicks without you realizing as well. So I think that's another point to be considered. But I totally agree in terms of, to be wealthy, it isn't just financial orientated. There is having the flexibility of time, which as a business owner, you're meant to have. You're not meant to be chained to your desk. You're not meant to be acting like an employee. And it sometimes feels like the business is running you, not you running the business. But it is trying to get to that point where the team know what they're doing, whether you're there or not.
Yeah.
You can go on holiday without having to be on your emails 24/7, and the business is safe without you. Those are often bits that I talk to business owners in my role about is, are they in a position to have the business running without them?
Yeah.
And of course, health, massively affects everything, doesn't it? If you haven't got that, then that's one of the biggest things you need to prioritize. And I think it's also recognizing that they come and go through different stages within the year for whatever reason. You, as a business, you'll go through harder times. Cash flow will be tighter. Hopefully, it comes back in spades. But also, you'll get that with your time as well, and your health. I think fundamentally is having those elements being considered when you're mapping out what you want to be achieving over X period.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And putting the systems in place to make sure you've got that.
Yeah, I think that everything you've shared with us there is absolutely on point. I think the final piece was super smart because again, how many people at level one and level two are genuinely sitting down and writing a proper business plan? And how many people understand what a business plan actually is? Does it need to be 350 pages and 5 years into the future? The answer is no, it doesn't. Clearly, you know that. It just needs to be what it needs to be to help you get to win in this next, year ahead, let's say. So are we planning to be wealthy in terms of time, money, and health? If we're not, then be careful, right? So I'm interested, Ryan. I'm speaking to people here that own a level three business, a successful one that's doing very well. I would say, a standout business in its sector. Which of the three are you prioritizing right now as a business? Which do you think takes the front seat?
Good question. I would say financial has probably taken the front seat. Last year was hard. Well, the last 2 years have been hard in recruitment. There's been a lot of changes in the economy, but also within the financial services element as well. 50% of our businesses on the recruitment side is mortgage advisors. That's been a hard market over the last few years since end of 2021. So it's I think the priority is weathering that storm as best as we can and
Yeah.
getting back to the good times. Um, because everyone, our candidates, our clients, us, have felt the pain over the last few years with that. So I'd say
Mhm.
that's probably one of the drivers. Um, but it's trying to keep the balanced look on it all because again, financial, everyone wants healthy bank balances on the financial, whether it's personal, whether it's company orientated, but equally you need the other two as well.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you culturally weave time into your planning, into your ethos, your philosophy as a business? What does it mean to you and Gary and the team? If I were to turn up there today and say, tell me about how you guys all feel about time, what would be the response?
Yeah, of course. I think you touched on it earlier when you described what a level three business is in terms of running without you physically there, or in that description. And it is making sure each and every one of our team members knows what they need to be doing and the impact they have on the wider business through those
Mm,
duties. And I think that's the key element, is trying to limit how much has to be done solely by me or Gary,
mm,
and that
mm,
we can pass it over, and trusting whoever you choose to do that responsibility that they can do it to the best of their ability, but also the best of our ability, so that you don't feel like you're compromising. Um, and then also, I think the bit that sometimes gets overlooked, and we're in a sales business, so I don't know how this would necessarily work in others, but is making sure what we ask for in time, we equally provide back to our team. So particularly our recruitment consultants.
mm.
I talked about, when people go on holiday, that's the biggest concern. Does everything stop overnight, or do they still need to work? And is it then really a holiday? So we make sure we offer to all of our team, particularly on the consultants, when they go on holiday, they go on holiday, we look after things for them. And if you provide that, then it's fair to expect the same back, that they'll step in and help when you're on holiday.
Isn't it a reality that everything that we have in life is a reflection of us? It's cliched. There's a billion coaches on the planet that would say the same thing to you, but of course it's true. It is true. Um, so the fact that your people are being given an opportunity, a culture that reflects yours and Gary's values in that space is a wonderful thing. And again, it's incredible that the people watching and listening can perhaps stop this lunchtime today, this evening, this weekend, and say, am I really creating the environment for success? Or am I wanting it and hoping I get it? Management by hope versus doing. And it's very interesting again. So, Ryan, I don't, please forgive me, I realize that already I've kind of made it public in this interview that there's a transitionary period here. But you clearly control the narrative and the detail. But how do you feel about time in your life now as the managing director that is on a pathway to become a CEO in his own right at some stage? What runs through your mind when you envisage yourself 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line in that moment?
First and foremost, excited, because it provides me opportunity to continue to develop, so
Good
that
answer, by the way.
I don't become stagnant.
Yeah,
Um, Being completely transparent, nervous, anxious as well.
yeah,
i- that is going into the unknown of growing into a role that I've not done yet.
yeah.
But I think if I wasn't, then there would be too much confidence. Too much of anything is dangerous. Too much confidence becomes arrogance, etc. So
And blindness.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, fundamentally excited. Um, Me and Gary have got a plan in place, but equally he absolutely loves what he does, and so
Yeah.
I think I will have to pull him away kicking and screaming. But that's what you want, isn't it? You don't want to
100%.
be retiring because you feel you have to. You want to retire because you can and you want to.
Right.
Um,
Well, you've just described the wealth equation, right?
yeah, exactly. So I think that there is a plan in place, but I am letting Gary control it as long as it's within our guidelines of what we've agreed, because he's got to do it when it feels right for him.
It sounds like father and son have a pretty clear professional. When I say pretty, that's a slight understatement. I would say very clear professional sort of boundary and structure here. It's interesting to hear you talk about your relationship with your dad in that way. How did you reach that, or has it always been like that? Or yeah, how does it work?
I joined the business when I was 17, so I've grown man and boy um,
Yeah,
within the business. By all means, working with family isn't always easy.
no,
You
it's not.
you have discussions over the dinner table when I was living at home, and you have my mum sort of saying, "My God, can you not, can you
Yeah,
stop talking shop?" Um,
time, right? It's time.
yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it is, in a sense, seeing him as my dad, but also seeing him not as my dad at times as
Mhm.
well. And
Yeah,
I think that's the balance you've got to strike sometimes.
you're doing a really good job in this discussion of not, he is Gary, isn't it? It's only the fact that I've softened it slightly and brought the subject in that you go in there. It's well played, very, very interesting.
Well, I think everyone sees that. Sometimes I call him Gary in the office. Sometimes I call him Dad.
Yeah,
Our team members see that. Our clients see that, but they know that that's the relation. So it's not awkward in any sense.
yeah, no, that's true. Would you class yourself as an open person? Are you a person that understands that this version of Ryan today is not the version of Ryan that will become CEO? In other words, the gap between the two versions of you requires learning and development. Are you plugged into that?
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. I think it was only last night or the night before I was speaking to my wife about this very topic, funny enough, is
Mm,
that people do change,
mm.
and that's not a bad thing.
You have to change. Yeah,
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 you
yeah.
you can't be the same person you were 5, 10 years ago.
No, there's a million cliches and books on the subject, right? So what's got you here won't get you there, and all that good stuff, you know. So it's yeah, interesting. And you're okay. Talk to me about health then. What are you guys doing to ensure that you remain healthy at the front of the ship? But at the same time, I'm interested to see what you guys are working around with your team there.
Yeah, definitely. I think health is very subjective. I think it's the most subjective out of all of them.
Mm,
Everyone's got their own version. Over the 12 years I've been in the business, what I account for as ways to prioritize health for myself have changed. Um, I'd love to go to the gym, but that's taken a back seat more recently for different personal reasons with everything going on in my personal life, but I still feel healthy because um, of what's around me. And so I think in answering it for the team, what we do, I think it is just respecting the boundaries on time, so
yeah,
that then um, when they're in work, they're in work. When they're out of work, they're out of work. And I think that enables them to do whatever they feel is right for their own health reasons. But also, I think the other thing that I say to everyone who starts on the induction when it comes to holiday allowances, for example,
yeah.
is your holiday there is there for you to use. And obviously, there's guidelines of when you can and can't, particularly
Sure,
with,
sure.
clashes with people in similar departments. But please use it for reasons that rest and recharge the batteries, but also are things you look forward to. You need within your
That's great
year.
leadership. That's great leadership.
Yeah, within the year, you need events to look forward to. You've
Yeah,
got them planned. That creates
yeah,
many milestones,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'll try wherever possible not to decline any holiday requests,
Mm, mm.
because that's what people are working for. They're working for these events.
That's right.
Um,
Exactly.
Go enjoy them.
Yeah. There is no. We have a little saying here at Power Play that there is no surprise, no coincidence, no luck. You are You are the custodians of your reality. It's as simple as that. So what I can only imagine that being an employee of Premier Jobs is a pleasure, but equally quite a distinct environment that I would imagine that people are either going to really fit or struggle with,
Yeah.
and again, that's to be celebrated. For me, you're a Marmite business. And that's a beautiful thing. Whether you like it or dislike the flavor of it, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have an identity, you have a character, you're clear. There's too many people out there, too many business owners out there, people watching this probably, that are struggling with identity. They're trying to be all things to all people and failing, and that's why you've got to pick your path right the way from your strategy of your market, boom, right, and so on. Just quickly, last couple minutes in today's interview, the acquisitions business. So is that a totally separate limited company, or does it sit within the group, or how does it work structurally?
Yeah, sure. Sits within the group. It born out of, we were doing that level of activity anyway. 10 years ago, our clients were asking for us to help with sourcing individuals looking to retire that they could purchase their businesses and client banks.
I see.
But we took the opportunity to create its own identity, because if you've got someone looking to retire, the last thing they want to do is speak to someone who's a recruiter. They're
Yeah,
like, I don't need a job. So it's speaking
yeah.
to someone who can easily be identified as an acquisition broker. But it sits within the group. It provides easy ability for the two sides of the business to work closely together, because there's same policies. We've got a team who can float between it, etc. It just creates a much more straightforward point of view from contracts and policies. And it also means when we speak to our clients that we explain we're part of a bigger group, and there's also additional services you can benefit from.
I think it's a very clever strategy of diversification. It's also, again, for people watching, isn't it interesting to be able to take a prospect and work them all the way through the layers of relationship evolution to the very point where you can maybe help them even sell or buy other IFA businesses. Very interesting. Really good. Ryan, we'd love to get you back at some stage to perhaps dig a little deeper into some of this stuff, and maybe in the future if you were open to it. It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you today. I would say to everybody, just briefly in summary, we were talking to an organisation this morning in Premier Jobs UK that has clearly earned the right to be wealthy. And let's remind ourselves that wealth does not mean money. It means time, it means money, and it means health. And according to Ryan, it also means reputation. Yeah. So I might just have to get you to sign a bit of paper to say I can use that. It's very interesting. Well done. Excellent stuff. Thank you very much for joining in, Ryan. On behalf of everybody behind the show here, thank you very much for being a part of it, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.